Hey, this is Angela with this week's Living the Shift. We have gone through this period of huge crisis in terms of not just in our own home areas, but like throughout this entire world. And that has to do with responsibility and who takes responsibility for what, and disempowering ourselves from taking our own personal responsibility for everything that goes on around us. We've gotten so much into the habit of saying, oh, that's them. Ugh, I can't stand people like that. Or I can't stand groups like that. Or that's that group. That's not me. That goes back to this whole perception of duality, this whole lesson of duality that we have really aspired to have throughout this existence. So we had thought, okay, let's do the me and not me, right? Then we go back to that discussion, and really that's essentially what duality is the me and not me, the perception of that, the illusion of that we can be separate in any way, shape, or form, when we all are one and all part of the same entity, this all oneness and universal life force. That's amazing and created of unconditional universal love, and that's what it is. So we have gone to this extreme of perception of separation, right? We've separated ourselves in so many different ways. And in doing so, we're saying me and not me, right? Me and you, me and them, us and them, we and they, all this kind of stuff. And so look at how large of a scale it's gotten to. So it's not just happening in our houses, in our homes. It's not just happening in our schools, in our communities, in our institutions. It's happening in like our governments, entire political factions, entire countries, and just collective governments and all that. How much it's going on, us versus them. Oh, no, how many times have you looked at the politicians going, oh yeah, they did it, no, they did it, no, they did it, and they're saying the same thing, or they did the same thing, but they're trying to like point the light on somebody else, right? Or they want to take it on themselves and then discount somebody else. So in living the shift, we're going through this period of shifting, right? So I've talked about how we are going from this place of disempowerment, right? We have allowed ourselves to be disempowered. We've taken the divine out of us. We have, or perceived to. We created the illusion of doing that, and putting all these, blockades, these walls up that cause us to enable us to pretend that the divine is outside of us, that we can be without responsibility, that we can be powerless in any way, shape, or form, or we can be limited in any way, shape, or form. So in this shifting period, what is one of the biggest things for us to do that's so important is to take back our power, to take back our responsibility. Yes, and so like the first part of it was like, yeah, take back my power. The second part is, oh wait, I have to take responsibility for that too. And so I go back to, what was it, Spider-Man, right? Spider-Man's uncle told him, Peter Parker's uncle told him, with great power comes great responsibility. That is the truth. And we are all powerful. And guess what? We have all of the responsibility, all of it, every single one of us, individually as well as collectively, because we are all one, essentially. And so in bringing back and resolving this duality, this perception of duality, that is fully taking responsibility and empowerment over our lives, over what's around us, in our realities, and in the world, because we're all part of this organism together. So there are lots of ways that we have manifested that in the physical, okay? We have all of these places of want and need, and look at our environment, and look at just how so many governments are falling apart, the financial systems are falling apart, things that don't serve us are falling apart because they don't serve us. And we're spending all of this time and energy judging and criticizing each other and saying, well, it's their fault, it's this group's fault, it's this company's fault, it's this government's fault. And it's time for us to say it's all of our faults, because we allowed it to happen. We allowed it to get there. We allowed ourselves to be disempowered, feel disempowered, and to say, okay, somebody else can take care of it, but not me. That is disempowering ourselves and shifting the responsibility. So there's so many levels to that, right? We do all this clearing work, right? So I start doing all this clearing work. We're working on ourselves, we're clearing ourselves, we're pulling up this muck. Well, in relation to the spirituality of it, when we do these clearings and healings, of ourselves, and we bring up things not just from this life, but from all the lives that we have been here throughout this existence. When we bring it up to clear it, if we don't want to look at it, if we are not looking at it right, straight, smack in the face, guess what's going to happen? It creates itself as a mirror in our reality. We have so much going on right now at so many different levels. And one of the things that's going on is, Earth is sort of being reborn, if you want to talk about it in spiritual and esoteric kind of sense. And in doing so, she's bringing out a lot of this negativity of all this stuff, all this blood that we've shed by disempowering, by saying us versus them, by, blaming and just shirking responsibility for stuff. And all that stuff that has seeped into the being of our organism that we call Earth or Gaia, whatever you want to call it. And now it's all being sort of detoxed because the light's changing, the vibration's changing, the energy is changing, and it's all coming to the surface for us to look at it collectively as well as individually. So this is a huge task for all of us, but it's really not as huge as you might think, right? When people come to me and they want to start working in the spiritual realm, and they want to do, energetic healings and all that kind of stuff and work with people to do that, one of the first things I tell them is this. First of all, everybody heals themselves, okay? We're not, I wouldn't call myself a healer, I'm a healing facilitator. I help people bring up the stuff that they need to clear. I can pull it in through intuitive means, and I can help them access the frequencies and vibrations that they need that in the highest and best way to heal and clear it. And they will do it only if they're ready. So again, healing is our own personal responsibility. So I tell people that when we work on that. That's one thing, okay? Another thing is that when we do this work, when we work with other people, guess what happens? Whenever you have something that comes up to clear, many times you have stuff, and there's just stuff to look at or stuff to mirror, it will come and mirror back to you with your clients, with the people you work with. I can't tell you how many times that's happened. Well, all of a sudden I'll have an entire day of clients, and they'll all have the same theme from a different perspective, and I'll be like, yeah, okay, I get it. But the key is, then I say, okay, so let me look at this. Let me look in the mirror at this and say, what is it within me that's causing the situation? Or these people come to me with with the same issue. Where is that issue relevant to me and what I need to clear out? That's taking full responsibility for my role in the interaction. And it doesn't have to just be with people who do this work. This has to be with all of us, okay? What is key is for us to look at everything in the mirror. And when we are ready to look unabashedly, directly at ourselves and say, okay, this doesn't serve us anymore, let's let go of this. This doesn't serve us anymore, let's go with this. This does, let's hold on to this. And let's shift our judgment, our criticism, release it. Because criticism, judgment, ego-made, we've created that and the perception of that, and we have the worst judgment and criticism on ourselves. So what happens is that when we have harsh criticisms and judgments of ourselves, guess what happens? We will mirror and reflect situations outside of us that we will judge harshly. And the more harshly we judge it, guess what? The more there's a chance of it being inside of us to clear out. And there have been so many situations where that's happened. So the key for us is to stop looking at others and saying, okay, where everybody else needs to work on, and start looking at ourselves and say, okay, let's work on ourselves. And I always tell people, that's the third thing. When people want to start working on themselves and they want to start, clearing themselves out, and then they feel good about themselves, and then all of a sudden they start getting worried about other people. Well, what about so-and-so? My mother, my brother, my sister, my spouse, my kids, how do I get them to do this? And I'm like, you don't get them to do anything. The key is when we're working, what our best thing is, and our highest and best effort is to clear out this muck in the fastest and easiest, most graceful way possible, is for us to work on ourselves. And I talk about this over and over, because the more we work on ourselves, and forget about everybody else, because you know what, the more we work on ourselves, the more we clear out, the less we are going to create in our reality, right? So that's just not going to happen. The negative stuff just won't happen around us anymore. And the more we clear out, the brighter our light becomes, the higher our vibration becomes, the more we can raise the vibration of those around us. And if you think about it, as every single one of us on this planet have like this beacon of light, right? The brighter our light is, guess what? And the more lights that we have and the brighter the lights are, the more collectively we can just one huge organism become this huge beacon of light. And we're just uncovering all the muck that we pretended to cover ourselves up with. So it's just another level of perception. And so that's the key, is instead of judging others, instead of judging groups, instead of judging, we need to remember, number one, that we are fully empowered. We are fully the divine. The divine is always inside of us. We are part of it. We are a spark of the divine, and we have full access to all of it. And that's the shift that we're going through, is that remembrance of that. So that's the key. And the more we clear out, the more we release the ego's judgments and all of the resistant negative energies and emotions like fear, anxieties, regrets, rejections, resentments, anger, guilt, doubt, pain, and sorrow. The more we clear that out, the more we can stay in love and in our hearts. And it's one step at a time. The first step is to notice when you judge or criticize or say, not me, well, then you have to look in the mirror and say, what within me is creating that situation? And yeah, sometimes it's scary because we judge and criticize ourselves the most, like I said, out of anyone else. But when we start looking at those things one at a time, nobody else has to hear the conversation but you. Or if you want to come to me or somebody else who does the kind of work I do, we can, it's really easy to come to the table without judgment and say, okay, let's just look at this. Let's put it up in the light and say, okay, what is this about? What caused it? And then let's clear that out. And so you don't have to worry about it anymore. So it's not, deep down there in the dungeons of your muck from, this life and in other lives and everything else. It's all part of the experience. So on that, I'm just going to let you go. And I want you for this week to notice your thoughts. Notice what's going on around you. Notice, the first step is consciousness. Notice what's in your reality that is very unpleasant, that it just gives you a bad taste in your mouth, that just and doesn't serve you, because you might not even realize what doesn't serve you anymore, and what situations to be in, or what situations to release yourself of, and what kind of judgments and criticisms. But the first step is being conscious and noticing this. When it comes up, ask, what is this within me that's mirroring, in my reality? And many times you'll get the answer, and don't filter it out. Just let it come down and don't judge. Be without judgment and complete acceptance, and say, okay, I love myself and I am working on making myself the brightest light I can be. So I'm going to look at this and say, okay, it's time to clear this out and release it and let it go and heal ourselves and move forward in happiness and love and all that brightness. So on that, I'll let you go. This is Angela with this week's Living the Shift.